and I would like to introduce to you our new board member. His name is Roderick Castro, and he is currently a director of the Division of Curriculum and Instruction in San Francisco Unified School District. In addition, he serves as associate professor in the Rosier School of Education at USC. He lives with his wife, daughter, and father in Santa Venetia. Welcome, Roderick. I also want to, we're very excited to have three magnificent guests. Salma Tijero from the Marin County District Attorney's Office, Roy Leon from San Rafael Police Department, and Jim Correa from Novato Police Department. They will talk about their experiences and challenges working as Latinos in law enforcement. Thank you so much for being here.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Yolanda, for that introduction. Hello and good afternoon. Buenas tardes y bienvenidos todos en el condado de Marin. Welcome to the latest Marin Latino Leaders Luncheon. I am honored to be here in service to the community on the board of Marin Latino Leaders, and I know I definitely have big shoes to fill as secretary. I wanted to take a moment, of course, to thank Hugo Kea for his service. We have a very exciting panel today. Before we get started, however, I did want to review a couple of norms for today's luncheon. As you know, virtual settings are less organic and provide limited opportunities for people to connect and be present. As such, we ask that you keep your cameras on and remain muted. Next, we want to encourage participation, but remind the audience that this isn't an effective nor appropriate forum for specific concerns. Please feel free to reach out to your local law enforcement office with particular issues. Finally, we will be monitoring the chat box during today's presentation. Feel free to share your questions and they will be responded to as time permits. Also, we will be recording, as you can see, this afternoon's presentation and making it available over the next few days. Let me go ahead and begin by sharing our statement of purpose. Marin Latino Leaders was created to support and elevate the Latino voice in Marin County by recognizing leadership through networking opportunities that empowers the sharing of their challenges and successes. This is a platform to raise one voice for political, social, and economic change for the enhancement of the Latino community. Marin Latino Leaders is committed to make this a successful entity by featuring speakers that have succeeded in their careers and or have contributed to the community. Okay, before we begin with our panel, I'd like to turn it back over to Monica to acknowledge and welcome our elected officials in attendance. Monica?
Thanks, Roderick. Hi, everyone. I'm Monica Cañas, and I am the Public Relations Officer for the Board of Marin Latino Leaders. Thank you guys for being here. Part of what we do also at the beginning of our meetings is we always like to acknowledge our elected officials in the audience. And today we have Kate Collin, who is the mayor for the city of San Rafael. Hi, Kate, thank you for being here. And we also have Maika Llorens-Gulati, who is councilwoman for the city of San Rafael. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting Marin Latino Leaders and the Latino community. And now I have the pleasure of introducing our first speaker for today. We're so happy to have Salma Tijero. Salma Tijero, she is an investigator with the Marin County District Attorney's Office. Salma began her career in law enforcement in 2002 with the Marin County Sheriff's Office as a deputy sheriff. There, she held assignments within the custody division, patrol division, and the investigations unit as a detective. Salma is currently a member of the National Latino Peace Officers Association as treasurer of the Marin chapter. She's also co-chair of the Law Enforcement Committee of the Marin County Coalition to End Human Trafficking and a member of the San Rafael Rotary Club. Salma is bilingual and holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Criminal Justice from the State University of Sacramento and associate's degrees in Social and Behavioral Sciences, Humanities and Fine Arts, and General Education. So we will now pass it on to Salma to begin her presentation and talk about her personal story, being not only a Latina officer, but a female officer and law enforcement. And so thank you so much, Salma. You may begin.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And I'd like to thank all of you for listening to our personal experiences, and for Marin Latino Leaders for doing these positive events. I'm going to start off with my background all the way back from high school. I graduated from high school and went to the junior college, you know, the thing to do after you graduate from high school. And I also obtained full-time employment. I had was making pretty good money and had promoted fast in automotive sales and management. And my parents had always instilled the value of hard work and dedication in me. So I was pretty successful in that employment. Neither of my parents had finished school more than elementary grade level, and neither, of course, had went to college. My mom had always told me that I should go into college and get a successful career. And being young and thinking I knew everything at that age, you know, what did I do? I dropped out of college and just worked full time because I was pretty successful. And I thought, you know, hey, I'm making good money. This is great. But at some point, I was not very satisfied where I was in my life. And I went back to college again. I went to college as a younger adult. I was 24, and unknown to me what I was going to choose, what my major was going to be in college, but I knew I wanted to go back to school. So I went, and I was still working full time. And at the JC, I took a elective in criminal justice, and I found it very interesting. Although I didn't know what I wanted to do, I never had the idea that I would be in law enforcement as a kid or as a younger person. I never thought I would head into a law enforcement career. So I'm not one of those folks who said, yeah, I knew I always wanted to do this. It just kind of fell into me. I took, as I said, I took that elective. And then when I transferred to Sacramento State University, I took criminal justice courses, still not knowing what I would, where my career would lead me with my education. While I attended school there, I had a professor. His name is Hugh Wilson, and he had previously worked for the Marin County Sheriffs and had retired as a lieutenant with an injury. But Professor Wilson would recruit kids from college to work for the Marin County Sheriff's Office. And through his recruitment, I ended up working with the Marin County Sheriff's Office. That came about, the Sheriff's Office came to the Sacramento State University campus and did a bunch of testing that they could there on campus, which is unique because most agencies, you have to go to their organization to do the testing process. So they came and we were able to do written tests. We had a panel interview. We did the physical agility there, which consists of wearing a weighted belt, running a distance, jumping hurdles, getting over a 6-foot wall, carrying a 165-pound dummy and placing them on a platform. And there's like a 2-minute and 30-second time. So we did all that there. And then after we passed that test, the group that tested, then they moved on to do a personal background on the candidates. I was one of those candidates. And they do like a pre-screen background on you, a polygraph. They do a scenario exam, which you're talking to a video camera, which is kind of odd. You're responding to someone yelling at you or whatever they're doing on the video. And you do medical stress tests that you run on a treadmill while they monitor your heart. They take all kinds of labs from you, and they do a psychological exam on you too. And all of this was very stressful. And you're figuring either I'm doing all this to get this job, or I'm going to find out there's something's wrong with me, you know, like medically or something, because they're checking everything about you to see, you know, your medical tests and your background. And so it's all very stressful, and it's a long process. You don't find out right away. Anyways, I was hired. I was contacted by the sheriff's department. They offered me employment. At the time, I hadn't graduated from college yet. And I told them I wanted to graduate from college, and they waited for me. They could have told me, well, thank you very much for moving on to the next applicant who can start working now, but they actually waited for me. So then I went to work, and I worked in the custody division. At that time, I still had to go to the police academy. I was hired as a deputy sheriff trainee, which meant that they would pay my way through the academy. They paid for lodging so I could stay near the academy, and they also paid me a salary. So I was getting paid to go to school in essence. You know, I was studying the academy classes and still getting the salary. So it was really good. After I finished the academy, which was also stressful, I went back to work into the custody division. And then I had a test for patrol, because not everybody at the sheriff's office gets to go back or gets to go out to patrol. You have to test for that process. Like Jim and Roy, you know, they get to go directly out to patrol because they're police organizations, but it's different at the sheriff's office. So I had a test for that. And I also had to go through a field training program while on patrol. And again, I met stress and passed that. So after I was on patrol for a while, then I went to test for a detective slot, and I was able to obtain a detective position. And I investigated various types of crimes, but mostly I was assigned to the special victims unit. And that's where I investigated sexual abuse, sexual assaults, crimes against children. Those were my specialties, interviewing children. And I have to say that it was really rewarding to me to help victims, especially to service those who only spoke Spanish and those who didn't understand contact with law enforcement, you know, as a victim, and just interacting with law enforcement. So I found it very rewarding. I worked with other agencies such as social services during my career with the sheriff's office and dealing with the special victims unit crimes. And I did that for about 9 years. So I got a pretty good experience doing that. I was then rotated back to patrol in 2017 because law enforcement agencies, they rotate detectives back out into the streets to bring out to the streets what they learned through investigations. Other jurisdictions do it differently. You get to promote within in detectives or investigations. And because of my experience, the district attorney's office recruited me to come work for them. And that's what I do now, is work at the DA's office. Here we do interviews with victims. We do security, transportation, follow-up investigations, coordinate continued investigations with other agencies. We do public outreach. We offer the California RAP program, which is assisting those who need protection, being a witness or a victim of a crime, are many of my responsibilities that I have here at the DA's office. Some of the challenges I had, I felt that I didn't really see anyone like me, you know, a short little Latina. And so I didn't see anyone that looked like me. I didn't know if I belonged in the field. I didn't have family in law enforcement or anyone I could contact to ask those kinds of questions. But it was also a dominated field with males, a male dominated field, and there weren't too many ladies, but that's changing now. There's a lot more women in law enforcement and definitely more Latinas. But I also saw these as excuses as why I would fail. And I told myself, hey, despite my insecurities, I'm going to give it my best. And I'm gonna, if I get pushed back some steps, I'm gonna still keep coming at it until they keep pushing me back and tell me, hey, you don't belong here. But I have to say, everybody was very receptive to assisting me. The support that I had came from my, of course, faith and family, friends, colleagues. If there was anything challenging, I would look for support, and I was offered support. I believe that what I've done with my career, helping others, has been, again, the most satisfying to me. And I do now know, well, of course, I learned through my experiences that being in law enforcement, falling into it, was actually my passion that I didn't know I wanted. And I'm very grateful for everybody who helped me get to where I'm at. And I help others who have questions about getting a career in law enforcement. I've mentored people. If you have family or friends who would like some information, use me as a resource. And I believe I covered the topics. I don't know, am I missing something?
Thank you, Salma. No, I think, thank you for sharing your story, first of all. It's very inspiring and definitely made me smile. I think it's so important to be able to share that with others and see that it's possible, and that it's normal to feel scared and insecure and have all these type of doubts, but it's possible, right, to get where you are. And just, it's great to know that there's all sorts of support, for people that want to make it in this career. So thanks for sharing that. And we will definitely have some follow-up questions where you can talk about other topics as well. But thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I will just add that as a Latina, it's so wonderful to see Latinas like you representing our community, especially in a field that is not very common for someone, especially Latina, and you speak Spanish. And so that is a great asset to our community, to be able to have someone that looks like them and talks their language, and that can support them throughout this process, because it's not an easy, place to maneuver or to get around. And so having you in the DS office, I think, with all the wealth of experience that you bring to our community, is just such an amazing, resource to us. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
And now I get the pleasure to introduce our second guest. His name is Roy Leon. He's currently in the operations captain with the San Rafael Police Department. He was born and raised in a small town of Willits, California, just up north. And his parents were both born and raised in the state of Guanajuato, Mexico. I'm very familiar with Guanajuato. After high school, Roy enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps, where he served and completed 4 years of active duty service. And then in 2000, Roy was hired by the San Rafael Police as a parking enforcement officer. He was then promoted to be recruited in 2002 and attended the Napa Valley College Police Academy. Since becoming sworn as a police officer, Roy has held multiple specialties such as firearms instructor, self-defense, and tactics instructor, field training officer, member of the SWAT team, current SWAT and crisis negotiations commander, streets crimes unit, special operations unit, investigations unit, traffic unit, and certified as a narcotics and gang expert. In 2012, Roy was promoted to be and ranked as a sergeant lieutenant in April of 2017 and to captain in 2021, which is this year. So congratulations, Roy. And now Roy holds a bachelor's degree of science degree in criminal justice and master's of science degree in law enforcement, public safety leadership from the University of San Diego, and has recently graduated the FBI National Academy. And then for 20 years, he has been a proud Terra Linda resident, and he has been married for over 22 years, and he has 3 children. And Captain Leon spends much of his free time coaching youth sports in the community. Welcome, and thank you so much for being one of our speakers today.
Thank you so much. And I also want to thank everybody for giving me this opportunity to talk on this important panel. Unlike Salma, I actually knew from a very young age that there was nothing that I wanted to do in life but become a police officer. And I'll get into that a little bit later. Anyways, again, I'm just honored to be here with Captain Jim Correa, as well as Salma Tijero from the DA's office. I actually want to start off by thanking one of my mentors who is actually on this panel. I know that we've had coffee and we've had a lot of lunches, but I wanted to take the time to thank Captain Jim Correa. So when I first began my career over 20 years ago as a parking enforcement officer, he pretty much took me under his wing, gave me a lot of great advice, and pretty much showed me, how to do things the right way. And I will forever be grateful for his mentorship, for his guidance, and the advice that he gave me that I still use to this day. So Jimmy, thank you. I also want to thank Monica and Brenda. And not only Monica and Brenda, but all the Marin Latino leaders here in Marin County, and for this virtual luncheon. It's not every day that we get to share our experiences as a Latino police officer or a Latino in law enforcement. It's also not every day that we get to talk about, my story or our stories. And in this case, we've given Salma and Jimmy and I, I'm sure, have given hundreds of presentations, but it's really never about, our story and what led us to choose the career that we got into. So again, thank you so much. And I think it's important to have these type of panels for many reasons, but one of the most important reasons is, my hope is that we could make an impact on other Latinos, and not only make an impact, but also, make an impact on some of our kids that are Latinos that maybe someday want to become police officers or get into the law enforcement field. So I'm going to go ahead and start my story with where it all began for me, and that was Willits, California, home of the Wolverines. I was born and raised in Willits, California, which is about 2 hours north of here on Highway 101. And growing up, the population was about 2,500 people. So it's a very small community. It's become a huge city in my eyes now. There's a little less than 5,000 people. So, and growing up in Willits was really a great experience, and growing up in such a small town where you got to know everyone, and not only know everyone, but some of my best friends are to this day are friends that I met in sports or as early as kindergarten. And so in Willits, how we ended up in Willits. So both my mom and dad, they were both born and raised in Mexico. They're from a town, a little village called Chamacuaro, Guanajuato. And it's just outside of Michoacan, the state of Michoacan. And I have 2 older brothers, and I have an older sister, and they were all born in Mexico. I have a younger sister and another brother, and myself. We were all born here in California. So 3 older ones born in Mexico, the 3 younger ones born here in California. And when my parents migrated to the United States back in the early 1970s, they ended up in Hillsburg, California. And my dad ended up getting a job out at the vineyards and, picking grapes. And he did that for a short time until he got an opportunity to get hired in Willits at a lumber mill, or not a lumber mill, a lumber mill. And so he worked at a lumber mill for a little over 20 years before he retired from that job. So just growing up, one of the things that my parents were very adamant about was being proud of where we came from, being proud of where they came from. And so we didn't have a lot of money growing up. And one of the things that my parents wanted to ensure that we never forgot our roots was our vacations. Our only vacations every year were to pack a van up, as many people from Willits as possible that were from Chamacuaro, Guanajuato, and we would pack that van up and we would drive 2 days to Chamacuaro every single year, and those were our vacations. We didn't have much money to do anything else, but we definitely were able to visit Mexico every year. And I learned a lot from that. And to this day, I've been able to take my family and my kids to Chamacuaro, and we still have family members that are there. And it's just, I think to me, it's important for them to see where my parents were raised. And not only my parents were raised, but also I want them to learn that culture, the Hispanic Mexican culture that I got to know so well. And also, more importantly, I want them to appreciate everything that we have here in the United States. And it doesn't take long after arriving to Mexico for them to appreciate what we have here in California and here back home. So growing up, so I wish I could say that growing up was pretty easy for me. Unfortunately, we again didn't have a lot of money, and but my parents were always, able to provide for us. There was always food on the table. One of the most challenging events in my life happened when I was young, and that was when I was 5 years old. And at the time, we were all living, so there were 6 of us, my mom and dad, and then my grandma and my aunt. As most Latinos know, we like to bring in, cousins, family members, and, growing up, that's probably why I like to talk so much and I like to ask questions and get to know people is, there's times that I'd wake up and, there'd be a family or people sleeping on our couch and I had no idea who they were, and they were a cousin or they were a friend. And at the time there was 10 of us and we were living in a 1-bedroom house. And, my dad ended up working again in the lumber mill, working overtime. He was working every day in order to save enough money in order to add on to our house and make it a little bit more comfortable for us. He was able to achieve that goal and that dream and expanded on the house and added 3 extra bedrooms to the house. Unfortunately, soon after it was built, our neighbor's house caught fire and it jumped over to our house, and we unfortunately lost everything that we had, all our possessions, and including, more importantly, our house. Fortunately, nobody was injured, and that's the most important. I bring this story up not because I want people to feel sorry, for me or for us, but it was just, how grateful I am for the community of Willits and just all the people that helped us out through those, that difficult time. And it just feels like it was the other day, even though I was very little, and there's not, I don't remember everything about that event, but there's a lot that I do remember. Like anything, there's a lot of things that, good that came out of that. Although it did, we did struggle, for many years in order to recover from that. I try and live life and try and make positives out of negatives and everything that I do. And there was a lot of positives that came out of that. And one of the positives that came out of it was I became a Dallas Cowboys fan. And so my whole family, they're all 49er fans, but we had a lot of community members that ended up donating a lot of clothes to us. And in a garbage bag full of clothes was the sweatshirt of the Dallas Cowboys mascot. And it fit me. And I ended up wearing that for, every day for felt like years. And I've been a huge Dallas Cowboys fan ever since. The other thing too is after we lost our house and our possessions, I saw how difficult it was, especially on my dad. He was the, man of the house, trying to take care of, 6 kids and my mom. But he did his best he can. He continued to work hard. We were very fortunate that his best friend and his best friend's wife ended up taking us in. They were living in a 1-bedroom house at the time. And so my aunt and my grandmother ended up moving and living with other family members. But the 6 kids, my mom and dad, we all moved into this 1-bedroom house. And, I look back at that experience and just, I can't imagine how it, affected, that family as well. But they didn't hesitate at all to take us in. And again, it just, unfortunately, my dad's best friend has passed on. My dad has passed on, but my dad's best friend's wife is still here. And my mom and her to this day are best friends and see each other every day. So very, very thankful for what they did for us. I will never forget that. So a couple other things. So growing up, and I'll try and get to the point. And again, I do like to talk a lot. But so growing up, I ended up spending a lot of time playing sports. I played pretty much every sport that I could, and it taught me a lot of life lessons and teamwork, and that I use to this day. People are, always often ask me, so why a police officer? Why did you become a police officer? And like I mentioned earlier, I became a police officer, and I wanted to become a police officer at an early age. And it really started with the show Chips, Ponch and John. And I got into many fights with one of my brothers because I always wanted to be Ponch, the Hispanic police officer, and he wouldn't let me. He'd beat me up every time I'd say I was Ponch. So I ended up taking John. And so I would get mad if people called me Roy. I'd be like, my name's not Roy, I'm John. And so that's really what it was. It was, at first at an early age, it was all because of the show Chips. After that, it really, as I grew older and more mature, I really wanted to do it for many reasons. One of the main reasons was because I wanted to take care and I wanted to protect and take care of the Hispanic community, especially in Willits at the time. There weren't a lot of Hispanics in town of Willits, and there sure weren't any Hispanic police officers. And so I wanted to be a police officer in order to serve my community and serve the Hispanic community and take care of them. Obviously, as I got older and I became a police officer, it wasn't just about, protecting and taking care of the Hispanic community, but all communities. So I had 2 options. I could go to college or I could join the military. At the time, I decided to join the military, in which I went to the United States Marine Corps. I was the first family member to join the military and the armed forces. And I later, knowing how important education was, ended up getting my bachelor's and my master's degree. But I had a great time in the military. A lot of great experiences, met a lot of good friends that, helped me get to where I'm at today. So when I first began my career, I started as a parking enforcement officer. They weren't hiring police officers at the time. And Chief Cronin, who I'm very thankful for, he's retired now, but he gave me an opportunity. And he gave me an opportunity to become a parking enforcement officer first. I wasn't as excited when I first took on that position as I would have been as a police officer, but nonetheless, I did my very best in hopes that he saw what, what I could bring to this community. And he did, and he gave me an opportunity to become a police officer and sent me to the police academy about 1.5 years after being a parking enforcement officer. So after becoming a parking enforcement officer, I got assigned and passed my field training. I got assigned to the canal area of San Rafael. And that's where I really got to meet and got to know how great not only the San Rafael community is, but the canal community. And being a fluent Spanish speaker, there's no doubt that that helped me build a lot of friendships, a lot of relationships, and it helped me, do the absolute best that I can in order to help those in need and protect those in need. And I worked there for a little over, pretty much 10 years, pretty much my whole career. I got assigned to the canal area. And again, I finally was able to do what I wanted. And that was build that trust with the Hispanic community and help the Hispanic community as well as other communities again. And so one of the challenges and some of the challenges that I had as a Latino police officer when I first started was really about, I became a police officer because I cared. I became a police officer because I wanted to help. And one of the things I struggled with the most was having to arrest people, believe it or not. Regardless of what that crime was, I became a police officer because I wanted to protect and help the Hispanic community. And here I was removing some of these family members from their families and taking them to jail. Yeah, it was because they committed a violation of the law, but I remember struggling with that a lot. And I would talk to my dad and like, am I doing the right thing? And at the end of the day, is what helped me get through those. And to this day, what helps me get through a lot of that is just reflecting, right? When I go home or I'm laying in bed, I think about whether or not I did the right thing. Did I treat people fairly? Did I do my absolute best? Was I patient? And I made mistakes. There's been times that I'm, especially back when I first started, you're so busy going from call to call. You could go from a suicide to a traffic accident to a burglary to a robbery. And you could lose a little bit of your patience with people, and you sometimes forget, like they're victims. And what helped me through that was, again, just talks with my dad and other mentors and family members, but also just reflecting. And if I made a mistake, was changing it, and to ensure that I became a better person, and not only became a better person, but I made an impact, a positive impact on either, just other community members. All right, I'll wrap this up because I could talk forever. Again, I often get asked, do you regret becoming a police officer? And not for 1 second, not in a million years. I am proud that I'm a police officer. I'm proud that I represent and I work for the city of San Rafael, that I live here in San Rafael, and I've met so many good people here in our police department that work for the city and our community members. It's just a great community that, and it's given me so much. The city has given me so much. And I've had a lot of great mentors, a lot of great coaches, and I will forever be grateful for everything that they have done in order to get me to where I'm at today. So again, thank you so much, and I appreciate you being patient with me and telling my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Leon. That was such an inspiring story. Thank you so much for opening up and sharing that with us. For calling out, your mentors and all the different ways that you're able to get, support through challenges. Because obviously being a police officer, being in law enforcement is not an easy task. And, we're glad that you're able to get through and help the communities, help the Hispanic community. I think it's great that, you're fluent in Spanish as well. So you could, help the people that you're protecting and serving. I think that's really important. So thank you so much. And we're going to have a Q&A coming up soon, and you'll be able to talk about other areas as well. Thank you. And now I will introduce our next member on the panel. Okay. Jim Correa. Jim Correa is currently captain with the Novato Police Department. He began his career at the San Rafael Police Department in 1997 before moving to the Novato Police Department in 2017 as a captain. Jim has a broad base of experience, having worked a variety of assignments, including the Direct Patrol Unit, Field Training Officer, Child Abuse and Sexual Assault Detective, Corporal, Sergeant, and Lieutenant. He is most proud of his work associated with community engagement, gang prevention, domestic violence response, and child-related investigations. Jim holds a master's degree in public administration from Golden Gate University and a bachelor's degree in public administration from the University of San Francisco. Jim earned his management certificate from the California Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission, is a graduate of the Sherman Block Supervisory Leadership Institute, as well as the FBI National Academy. Jim lives in Marin with his wife and 2 children. He has strong community connections through church, schools, and youth sports. He is a board member for the North Marin Community Services, serves as the board vice president and past chairperson for the Diversity and Equity and Inclusion Committee, and is on the Not in Our Town Novato Steering Committee. Thank you, Jim, for all your wonderful contributions to the community, and we're so happy to have you today.
Thank you very much, Monica. I want to start by saying I'm humbled to be a part of this, especially after hearing Roy and Salma talk. I think our experiences, as I'll talk about a little bit, are one of the biggest things, right? That's what guides us. That's what makes us. And I know Roy very well, having worked with them throughout the years, and same with Salma. But you always learn more about people, and I think building those relationships and knowing people is such an important part. And I thank the Marin Latino Leaders for including us and thinking of us during this time. It's obviously Latino Heritage Month, so for 3 people here in law enforcement to be kind of the representatives for the group is, again, very humbling. We appreciate it. And thank you to Roy for the nice words that he said about me. Roy's been somebody that I've had the pleasure of working with as a partner for many years. He does a fantastic job at the San Rafael Police Department. I will knock Roy a little bit because on the screen is a LA Dodgers cup. I think you put that there strategically because it's a big series right now. And Roy and I are great friends, and we text back and forth a lot about the Giants and the Dodgers, and obviously tomorrow is a big game, but I won't hold that against him. So I think I'll tell you a little bit about me and kind of how it's formed who I am. I was born in New York City. My parents are immigrants from Colombia. So I was born in New York, but we moved to San Rafael, California when I was 2 years old. My parents wanted to escape the harsh weather, more job opportunities. Luckily, I wasn't there long enough to pick up the accent. But when we got to San Rafael, we were one of the few Latino families in San Rafael and of course in Marin County in general. So early on, I realized I was different, right? That there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me or spoke like me or act like me. And I went to Coleman School for elementary school. We lived on Lincoln Avenue. We were able to walk over the overpass to school, which was pretty cool. But when I got to school, they didn't know what to do with me. There was, I think, one other kid who spoke Spanish. I remember him. His name was Sergio. And I repeated kindergarten because I didn't speak English. And there was no programs like we have today, programs like ESL or programs for people who are new to the area or new to the country. So my given name is Jaime, and that's what my mom will call me if I'm getting in trouble, right? Or if she needs to be direct with me. But nobody knew even how to pronounce my name. So Jaime became Jamie, and then Jamie became Jimmy, and Jim is my kind of professional stage name, but most people call me Jimmy. So it was, a big learning experience for me just even going through that experience, people not knowing my name, not being able to communicate with anybody, right? And a kindergartner, you're able to learn the language really quick. And actually for my two kids, my kids are named Evan and Joshua. So I picked names that were really easy, so nobody could confuse the names or even mispronounce them because of some of the experiences that I had. And growing up in San Rafael, I never used that as a crutch. I never tried to be different. I always tried to adapt and show people who we really were. But I remember growing up in middle school or even in high school, kind of being embarrassed that I spoke Spanish, or if my mom spoke to me in Spanish, because that's the primary language of my mom. That's how I still talk to her when she calls, or I'm over at her house. Even when I'm with my family, my wife doesn't speak Spanish and my kids speak a little bit. But as I got older, I really learned how much of a benefit that was and how important that was. And my first job in high school was at Bank of America. And I worked there as a teller as a senior in high school. And I worked there after school and on the weekends in between baseball games or baseball practice and a lot of that kind of stuff. And that was kind of my first true exposure to the Latino community. Here was this guy who, I look Hispanic. Most of the Latino customers that came into the bank gravitated to me because I was able to speak their language. I was able to translate to them. I was really able to explain to them a lot of what was going on, what banking meant, right? And I quickly saw the distrust of the banking system in the community, right? A lot of the countries where our Latino community comes from, right, predominantly from Mexico or Guatemala or El Salvador, the banks aren't trusted communities. So here I am asking people to open new accounts and put your hard-earned money here, and you could use this ATM card or use checks to pay for stuff. It was kind of a foreign concept. And I remember a story that that made me very sad. The bank was doing a promotion on Visa credit cards, and we had a few people that came in thinking it was visas to be here in the country legally. So it was like, oh my gosh, these people think that this is the solution to a big problem for them. So again, to me, it was that trust building, that relationship building, really helping people to understand, what banking was. And I used my language tremendously there. I had a line of people waiting for me because if they were in line as a teller or they wanted to open a new account, I was the person that spoke Spanish. So everybody came to me or they would wait for me, especially on Saturdays. That was our busy day. And little did I know that all that stuff, my struggles learning English, my work at the bank, my embracing speaking the language would be such a tremendous benefit as a police officer, right? Because no different in the police profession. It's really about building those relationships. It's about building the trust. It's about taking the time to explain to people, hey, this is the job that we're doing. This is why we're arresting somebody. This is why we're taking a police report. I understand that culturally this is different for you. It's not how it was done where you immigrated from, and it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen just by lip service. It's by demonstrating it and doing the right thing, and the community members seeing that happen on a regular basis. And I believe that helped when I worked at the San Rafael Police Department. Much like Roy, most of my career I was assigned to the Canal neighborhood because I spoke Spanish, and that was the busy area, and that's where newer officers gained experience. But being able to talk the language, being able to help people when they were in those situations, right? It sounds like a cliche, but people call the police when they don't have a lot of other options. There's nobody else to call. So we always have to work hard to see how we can help. What can we do, right? And oftentimes it's not a police issue. It's not something that we can help ourselves. But I believe the police in Marin are also connectors to different organizations, right? Our officers, our supervisors, our managers are connected in so many different ways. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a couple organizations that I'm heavily involved with in Novato, right? And some of the best experiences I've had in my life, some of the most rewarding, but really what it does is it benefits the community because we're able to understand where the resources are and understand, hey, this person needs this resource. We can connect them to the help that they need, right? Because our goal is to try to get them to overcome the challenge that they're in, the situation that they're in, and hopefully not ever make it a police problem, or if it is a police problem now, not make it a situation that's punitive and something that we have to interact on or become something in the criminal justice system. And I see Luz Alvarado is on the line for Center for Domestic Peace. You know, I think as a young police officer, domestic violence is one of the biggest problems in Marin that we see. And it's a tremendous work of organizations like Center for Domestic Peace. Again, now somebody is a victim of a crime. They're a victim of this situation. How do we help them to overcome that, right? And especially in the Latino community, because of that lack of trust in the past, because of people not understanding the resources, and then people often not understanding that domestic violence is illegal, because sometimes where people have come from in their cultures, that's acceptable. It's not here. So again, it's trying to connect those resources and trying to make a difference and trying to help and connecting people to the right places. So as we mentioned earlier, I've been a police officer for about 24 years. I started at the San Rafael Police Department, had the privilege of working there for 20 years, and have now been at the Novato Police Department for about 4.5 years. And it's been a great experience, still working in Marin County, still being able to foster the relationships, still working with people like Roy and other people at the agency to try to be as effective as we can. Ultimately, everything that we do as law enforcement represents all of us, right? The Novato Police Department can do one thing, the San Rafael Police Department could do one thing, but at the end of the day, people see us as police officers. So it's very important that all our organizations are working effectively, that we're all working very hard to make sure that the public understands what we do, who we are, and just as importantly, what our limitations are, right? Because it's not always on like it is on TV, like CSI Miami or Law and Order, or like Roy mentioned earlier, CHIPS. Again, another formative show for me that helped me to become a police officer. One of my favorite gifts, my wife gave me all like 27 seasons of it on DVD, which we show to the kids sometimes. So all very, very important things. Much like Roy, I knew I wanted to be a police officer at an early age. So I became a police explorer in high school. And it's a program that was associated with the Cub Scouts, the Boy Scouts, to help people to get into law enforcement, right? And really what it does is it exposes young adults to what police work is about. Because I think that's one of our biggest challenges sometimes, like we talked about. It's not always the glamorous on TV, chasing cars, you know, those kind of action-packed all the time. It's a lot of really digging in, helping, working with people, trying to find solutions. So to me, that was my start into law enforcement. I was an explorer, and those were some of my best mentors I had, people that I'm still very good friends with, and that's what started me kind of in my passion about being a mentor as well. Is how do we work with the Latino community? How do we work with anybody who you see that promise in, somebody who you see is doing that extra work, who's taking the extra initiative, right? And I think all of us here, I know I did, I know Roy did, I know Salma did, had people there that were advocating for us, people that were helping us to get through the struggle, right? My family was poor growing up. My dad was involved in the family, but he was kind of that stereotypical Latino who from 25, 30 years ago, who saw his role as working, not so much helping the family. It was, hey, here I'm working, I've been working all day. That's really all I could do. So it's a lot of these mentors, it's a lot of these folks that really helped me to get to where I am today. And I think that's what I want to really impart on the group for all the Latino leaders that are listening, right? Is we've got to take those opportunities to mentor our folks. We've got to take the opportunities to mentor people into our profession, to make sure that we get the best people that represent our values into law enforcement. And then the other part is the connectors. We've got to be connectors. We've got to really help just to kind of interlace everything, right? Whether it's working with Monica's group or the DA's office or the Center for Domestic Peace or any of the elected officials to make change, to make sure we all understand kind of what needs to be done and how to help our communities, right? Whether it's Latino or non-Latino, we're all in this together, and it's really important to work all together. And I'm gonna finish off with an unconventional quote. Again, this is kind of directed at Roy to rib him a little bit about the Giants. But it was a quote from Gabe Kapler, who's the Giants manager, right? And it says, "Embrace being different. Don't try to be like anybody else," right? And baseball has changed and all this analytics and all this kind of stuff, but it's okay for us to buck the trend. It's okay for us to stand by our values, right? We can't be, out in left field, but sometimes you've got to risk something to make a change and to make a positive influence. And oftentimes when you do that, people realize, hey, there's different ways of doing things. We can build on that and make a difference for all of us. So I appreciate everybody's time. I'm going to stop talking as well. I could talk forever, but I look forward to the question and answer period. Oftentimes that's probably the most productive part, because we can answer questions and try to clarify anything. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Roy and Salma. It's important for our organization to acknowledge our Latino leaders, and you are wonderful role models for our younger Latino community. Our community must feel safe and feel trust. And I think that you have embodied that, and it's so important for our organization to acknowledge you. So thank you so much for being here. And we will now proceed with the questions from our audience.
Thank you so much, Jim, for that presentation. And again, thank you for all the contributions you've made to the community. And thank you to all the other speakers. I do want to start off with a question. I don't know if you have any information on this, but I think it'd be interesting to know what are some of the action plans that your department is taking or planning or doing to do more outreach to the community, to recruit, but especially with the Hispanic community, to try to motivate more Latinos to follow in this field, in this line of duty. And whoever wants to answer that could go first.
Monica, I could start. So I'll start by saying that COVID really has hurt us in the last 18 months, right? Because we can send out, social media is very effective. We can send out a lot of our messaging, but there's nothing like personal face-to-face conversation. So I think some of the things that our agencies in Marin have done is stuff like the Community Academy in Spanish. And it's a program that's 8 weeks long, an hour and a half every week, where participants get to see kind of every part of the police department, from the dispatch center to the detectives to patrol. They get to go on a ride along. We actually put them through like a quick scenarios using simulated weapons to get that feel of, hey, this person's not complying with what I'm asking them to do, and they have a knife and they're coming towards me. What do we do? What do we say? How do we de-escalate some of that kind of stuff? We've done coffee with the cop kind of events, popsicles with the cops. But I think one of the biggest things that we need to continue to focus on is our youth, right? It's some of the events that we do at the elementary schools, some of the events at the high schools through our school resource officer programs, but also looking to this group to say, hey, what other avenues are there to get that word out, right? Because the people who are here are a lot of the leaders, a lot of the people that already understand the concepts and can call the police department and ask tough questions. But how do we get to the communities that that aren't here today because they're probably working or taking care of their kids? So I think that's something that we'll look to this group in the future to say, hey, these are some ideas of things where we can continue to get the word out and get in front of the people that we want to convince that we're the right people to help and that we are there for them.
Yeah, just to add on with what Captain Correa just said, a few other things that we encourage our officers to do is we encourage them to get out into the community, and whether either on duty in uniform or not, and be mentors and make these positive impacts on our kids. So coaching is a big one. We try and get our officers to try and spend as much time as possible out with with our kids and our juveniles, and coaching is one of those things. Another one is Camp Chance. So Camp Chance is a program that we have here at the San Rafael Police Department, and Novato has also assisted the city of Novato and the Novato Police Department and the Sheriff's Office, Marin County Sheriff's Office, as well as probation. We have these agencies that have come together, and we send anywhere from 80 to 100 kids from our communities to Camp Chance, and Camp Chance is out at Walker Creek Ranch. So there's kids that I met, over 10 years ago that went through that program at 10 and 11 years old that are now working as police officers here at the San Rafael Police Department. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that because, not only is he a Latino, but he was born and raised here in this community in San Rafael, and now he's serving our community. We do have other programs as well, like our cadet program. A cadet program is where we hire college students to come in and work, kind of like an explorer, come in and work here at the police department. And we just currently hired 3. All of those 3 are Spanish speakers, Latino, and all grew up here in San Rafael. So I am proud that we ended up hiring those 3 kids. And our hope is that they'll work as a cadet, get experience once they graduate, and we'll support them while they're in school. But once they graduate, if they choose to become police officers or work here, become an employee, whether a dispatcher or in the front office or an evidence technician, that we will support that and hopefully hire them so they can serve our community.
For the DA's office, I like to say that the DA's office investigations bureau is different in that we don't tend to hire new law enforcement. We tend to hire folks who have experience in law enforcement and investigative experience. But we do publications through social media. I personally myself have reached out to affinity groups like National Latino Peace Officers Association and other peace officer associations to put out postings for Investigator. But out of our DA's office, we do have other job skills here that are that we have here at the office, and attorneys, of course, and clerical. And in those aspects, we have tried to attract more diverse groups as well. If you come to the DA's office, the front counter now, you will see there are more bilingual people working there who are helping people who come to the DA's office with questions, victims, or, so that has definitely been a good thing that's been happening here at the DA's office. And for the youth, the attorneys here do have intern program for high school kids. So any kids who are interested in, becoming an attorney or seeing how the justice system works, definitely, the DA's office is a good place where they can, also try to do an intern here and get that experience.
Thank you, all 3 of you, for sharing that in the ways that you just put the word out there and try to recruit young adults, and also how you for instance, in my experience working in the community, I oftentimes, when I coordinated the health fairs, you were always present, engaging with the community. And then when I did a lot of work with the schools as well, when we got the word out about any opportunities for summer camp, summer activities, definitely Camp Chance was one of them, and a lot of our kids ended up going to that summer program. So it's a wonderful experience, and hopefully you'll be recruiting more people that are bilingual and interested in joining, because I think that it seems like a fine line, because it is it's like another job, but sometimes people have or kids have this hesitation, right? Because it's law enforcement, so it's a little tricky to make that decision. But I think you and your departments are doing a great job in just reaching out and getting the word out. And I think that, just given that you're offering different opportunities in Spanish for more children, or even the parents to be informed, is wonderful. So thanks.
Do we have any additional questions or any comments you may have for our wonderful speakers today? Okay.
I just want to give a shout out to Jim and all the other law enforcement leaders on this call that are role models in our community and are partnering with programs like the Frederick Leon Marcus Youth Academy here in the Sausalito Marin City School District, so that we can really begin this pipeline of teachers, of law enforcement officers, of social workers, probation officers that are homegrown, that are kids that grew up in our county, that understand our communities, that understand our people, and most of all, that are have the cultural and linguistic ability to create strong foundational relationships. Because to me, that is the big difference between community policing and more traditional forms of policing, is the ability of our officers to create relationships. And I know that Jim in particular is excellent at that, and he always has been since way back in the days when we were bank tellers together at the San Rafael main office and Bank of America. So thank you all for everything you do, and I appreciate all the partnership with our district and in creating some pipelines for people of color to step into positions of leadership in our county. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Itoko. All right, I think if there's no other comments or questions, I think we're ready to move to our announcements this month.
If we have any public announcements, please let us know. We of the Marin Latino Leaders are going to be participating in the Day of the Dead community celebration on November 6th. And it's from 3 to 9, and it's at the Alboro Community Center. So if you would like to join us and as members of our MLL, we would love to have you come and help us. And this is the first time that we are doing this, but I think that it would really be wonderful to have an altar with the past leaders, the past Latino leaders of our time. So I hope you get encouraged. We welcome suggestions and hope that you will be there. Thank you.
Thanks, Yolanda. And again, just a final thank you to our speaker panel today, for taking the time to be here with us, share your stories. I think it's so important to, offer that platform to you guys as officers, as Latinos, as leaders in the community. So again, thank you for your time and for being here. And I just wanted to announce our future luncheon that we're going to be having on December 8th. We are going to be giving our first ever Latino Leader of the Year award. And this year we're going to be honoring Douglas Mundo. I'm not sure if any of you know him or have heard of him or seen him. He's the executive director of the Multicultural Center of Marin. He has done many, many amazing things and contributions in our community. And we definitely are very, very excited to be honoring him with this award this year. And for you guys to come and hopefully you guys could come and join us and meet him and learn more about him. I think it would be great. So we're going to be sending an email, a flyer, and a link to register for this event. It'll be the last one for the year. And again, thank you for being here. We'll follow up with an email with the recording of the event today as well. So without further ado, we have finished for today. And so thank you for being here.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.